Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching my presentation. My name is AIChE, and today I'm presenting the part of my PhD research. The title of my presentation today is Nickel Cobaltite Hybrid Structures, Tailoring Battery-like Materials for High-Performance Energy Storage. Before we go through the presentation, I would like to highlight the outline. First, I'm going to talk about energy storage in general and why it is important for us these days. Then I'm going to talk about supercapacitors and why we need these high performance energy storage devices. And then we will move on to discuss the factors that affect the high performance energy storage. And at last, I'm going to talk about our research, which is basically developing template-based metal oxide composites for high performance energy. So without wasting any more time, we'll move forward. Uh, Renewable energy sources are becoming more primary these days, but the problem that they have is that they don't provide us uh, on-demand energy delivery. To resolve this issue, we have been developing different energy storage devices, and electrochemical energy storage devices in particular are showing the most promising ones. So among these ES devices, as you can see on the right side, here we are more interested on supercapacitors, which are the bridging gap between capacitors and regular batteries. And you know, to understand supercapacitors more, it is useful to know how they store energy in the first place. Uh, in batteries, in principle, the way that they store energy is basically by uh, going through a redox reaction that uh, comes from ion diffusion and intercalation uh, in between the uh, intercalation layers of the electrode material. This process is diffusion limited, and therefore most of the batteries that we see, they suffer from low charge and discharge rate. But what if we need fast energy delivery and burst of energy? That's where supercapacitors come into play. Supercapacitors, just like batteries, they store energy using an electrochemical reaction, but uh, unlike batteries, uh, the nature of these electrochemical reactions is surface uh, redox uh, reactions that take place mostly on the surface of the electrode, and therefore they can deliver energy much faster, and they are suitable for fast charge discharge rates. The reason that we chose nickel cobaltite was that these materials they come from a general family of spin of cobaltite with a formula of NCO204. These metal oxides, they go through two-step redox reaction. Therefore, they have high capacitance in general. And nickel cobaltite, among all its relatives, it has high capacitance even at high rates. But still, the conductivity is not that great, and the material needs to be responding faster. So in order to make it more suitable for supercapacitor applications, we need to know the factors that affect the rate performance here. So one factor is mass transport, which uh, is associated with the electrolyte ions that diffuse and become accessible to react with the active sites. And the other one is the charge transport that is associated with the electron transfer from the active side that go through the system. Uh, to overcome the mass transport and charge transport limitations, there are two main approaches that we could follow. The first one is tailoring the metal oxide structure to make the ion diffusion pathways shorter and make the active sites more accessible for the ion. And the second one is to introduce an additional conductive agent, such as graphene or conductive polymers to form the composite structure. This kind of formation, it improves the charge transfer properties, and also these conductive agents would would serve as a scaffold that could boost up the mechanical stability of the electroactive material as well. So our solution here was firstly developing template-based structures with tunable properties using metal organic frameworks. So metal organic frameworks are basically structures that are composed of metal cores and organic linkers. These materials have a tendency to show tunable pore size and high surface area, and metal oxides that are derived from MOF, they tend to show interconnected porosity, high surface area as well. And the second step of our solution was to explore composite structures based on those metal oxides that we had developed to improve the stability and charge transfer properties of the material, and make a composite structure out of those materials. So we came up with a plan to control the template structure. We initially developed ZIP67, which is a cobalt-based metal organic framework, and we later etched these MOF structures to induce nickel into their structure and form the ZIP67 nickel cobalt layer double hydroxide template, and later anneal these templates to get the final metal oxide structure, as you can see. So in order to get the desirable template structure, we focused on two steps. The first step was controlling the MOF crystal formation, for which we used a modulating ligand to promote the deprotonation of our ligands, and therefore improving the nucleation process of the crystal formation and getting non-crystals instead of regular microcrystals that people report. And the second step was, the second aspect that we focused on was controlling the MOF etching process and nickel cobalt layer double hydroxide formation, for which we focused on exposing these MOF structures to different etching concentrations. So as you can see, for the first part, we developed MOF structures with different metal to ligand ratios, and by increasing the ligand, we basically managed to get smaller MOF structures. But the more interesting part of the work was that by introducing the modulating ligand, as you can see in part C and D, the size of the MOF structures, they get smaller drastically. We further characterize these MOF structures to see how they change. And as you can see here, the XRD also confirms that the smaller MOF particles, as you can see, which are made from higher ligand ratios with incorporation of the modulating ligand, they have smaller crystal size, as well as they tend to show higher porosity on panel B, as you can see, which is based on nitrogen absorption desorption tests that we performed. After we realized how the MOF structure basically changes by using the modulating ligand, we further focused on controlling the MOF etching process and a layered double hydroxide formation. For this matter, we exposed the MOF structure to different etching concentrations. As you can see here, it is shown that the nickel is effectively induced into our MOF structure during the etching process. But what we needed to be careful about was that the etching process should have been controlled, since if we expose the MOF structure to excessive etching, this could have negative impacts. And as you can see on panel F, it would basically have destructive effects on our structure. We further did more detailed analysis on that, and as you can see, by increasing the etching concentration, we initially get higher surface area and pore volume, which could be due to the increase due to the formation of new microchannels. But after increasing the etching concentration, we started to lose the surface area and the pore volume. Furthermore, we did some we basically managed to make different metal oxides based on our prepared samples, and we did electrochemical characterization on our metal oxides. As you can see on panel A, it shows the separation of charge storage contribution for samples based on different MOF sizes. As you can see, the metal oxides based on MOF nanocrystals, they show higher charge that is stored, as well as they show higher surface associated charge, which is important for high performance energy storage. And on panel B, as you can see, we studied the effect of etching conditions by making metal oxides using similar MOF structure, but exposing the MOF structure to different etching concentrations. As you can see, the sufficient etching shows the highest charge stored, as well as the highest surface charge associated charge that could be delivered to the system. Later on, as you can see, we focused on the composite assembly. So for this part, we made the metal oxides, then we functionalized the surface of these metal oxides to tune the surface charge. We modified the surface charge so that the metal oxide should have positive surface charge, and we mixed them with graphene oxide, which basically initially has a negative surface charge, so they would go through a self-assembly composite formation, and we later on got the metal oxide geostructure, and we reduced geo to RGO at last using a chemical reducing agent. And here it's on panel A, you see the ECM picture of the composite structure, metal oxide RGO composite structure, and we furthermore we confirmed the structure formation using Raman spectroscopy, as you can see on panel B. The electrochemical performance of our composite was really interesting. As you can see in panel B, the cyclic stability of the composite was considerably better than the metal oxide itself, since the composite managed to retain 95% of the initial capacitance, while the metal oxide actually started losing and maintained only 70% of the capacitance that we had. Furthermore, the specific capacitance for our composite structure, as you can see in panel C, is higher than the metal oxide at different charge discharges, and moreover, it can actually, the rate capability is actually much better, and can actually it could actually hold capacitance for up to 30 ampere gram charge discharge rate, which is 50% better rate capability than our metal oxide that we developed. So to wrap up our talk today, the conclusion was that we managed to control the structural properties of our metal oxide by controlling the initial properties of our MOF template. The proper etching of these MOF templates and making the nickel cobalt hydroxide on the surface it could also benefit us by making microchannels in the MOF structure. And the downside of this research was that the MOF nanocrystal structures that we made, they showed a high tendency to agglomerate. Of course, making a composite at last was effective to reduce this agglomeration, but still, I think this material is not working at their best potential. Therefore, the proposed work and the future work that we are working on at the moment is studying the growth of MOF crystals on graphene support, and this is an STM picture showing the preliminary results of what we have been working on for the next chapter of our work. At last, I would like to thank my advisor, Dr. O, our graduate students, Farshad and Ehsan, and Alex Dobson, the undergraduate research in our lab, who helped me a lot, and our collaborators at Clemson University, Dr. AIChE and Ziner Liu. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.